Lana Dawson welcomed me with a tired smile. Her face bore the kind of sorrow that time can't fade, only deepen. The story was all too familiar. 2 decades ago, her parents had been murdered in their suburban Florida home, brutally, inexplicably. The case had gone cold. No leads, no suspects. She had been only 15 at the time, spared only because she'd stayed overnight at her grandmother's. Now, at 35, she was still haunted by the silence that followed their deaths. She had tried everything: detectives, psychics, even hypnotherapists. But desperation has a way of evolving. It changes shape. It morphs from frantic energy into something slow and heavy, something patient but no less painful. She found me through a friend of a friend. I wasn't exactly proud of that fact. I wasn't even proud of what I did anymore. I had tried to leave the medium life behind, but rent waits for no one, and neither does guilt. My own ghosts had driven me back to this. When Lana called, I didn't hesitate. The next day, I was on a flight to Florida, my carry-on containing only the essentials: sage, quartz, a silver amulet, and the thin leather journal I used to document every haunting. This one, I had a feeling I would need extra pages. The neighborhood had faded with time, just like the crime. Lawns were overgrown, driveways cracked, mailboxes leaning like tired old men. Lana met me outside the house. It looked like it had been peeled out of the 90s and vacuum sealed. Not a single thing had changed. Not the paint, not the blinds, not even the cracked garden gnome guarding the walkway. "I couldn't bring myself to sell it," she said quietly. "It's like I kept it alive hoping they'd walk back in one day." I nodded. Some wounds aren't meant to heal. Some stay open as a reminder that the world isn't always kind. Across the street, an old woman was watering her roses. She looked up and gave us a polite nod. Lana noticed. "She's the only one who stayed," she whispered. "Everyone else moved away." I followed Lana inside. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it. That static charge in the air. The heaviness of unspoken words. This house had not moved on. The living room was empty. No furniture. Just dust and one flickering light bulb dangling like a tired thought. The curtains were drawn tight and the air smelled like old wood and older memories. Lana pulled back the drapes, letting in sunlight that hadn't touched these walls in years. It painted everything gold, but even that couldn't erase the gloom. We walked through the rest of the house. The kitchen, where a blood-stained knife had once been found on the counter. The hallway, where signs of a struggle had been recorded. The bedroom, where Mr. Dawson had been found in a pool of his own blood, 15 stab wounds. Too many for a robbery, too few for random rage. Just enough to call it personal. "I'll set up here," I said, pointing to the living room. I asked for a chair, something to anchor myself with. Lana fetched one from the porch, brushing off cobwebs. I placed it in the center of the room and sat down. "I'm going to try to contact them," I said. "We'll need silence. No interruptions." She nodded and sat by the wall, clutching a framed photo of her family. I closed my eyes and began to breathe, slow, deliberate breaths. I envisioned my thoughts thinning, like fog in the morning. Then I spoke, softly but with authority. "If there is anyone here, I ask you to come forward. Speak to me." Silence. More silence. Then something. A weeping. Distant at first, like someone crying into a pillow a room away. It grew louder, closer. "Is someone here?" I asked again. The weeping stopped. "Yes," came the voice. Metallic, ethereal. "Can you hear me?" "I can. Who are you?" No answer. Just more sobbing. Lana's eyes widened. She couldn't hear the voice, but she felt the shift in the air, the cold, the change. "Are you Mr. or Miss Dawson?" I tried again. "I want to tell her I'm sorry," the voice said. My blood chilled. Sorry for what? The curtain stirred. The light flickered once. For what I did to her. For killing her the way I did. I opened my eyes. Lana's face had gone pale. I realized then we weren't speaking to her parents. The weeping had stopped. The air in the room grew heavier, like the house itself was holding its breath. Dust danced in the shafts of sunlight, slow and surreal, like ash from a forgotten fire. Lana sat frozen, clutching the photograph of her family, her knuckles white. I don't think this is your family, I whispered, my voice barely cutting through the silence. Lana's eyes flicked toward me, searching for answers, but I had none yet. Just feelings. Bad ones. I turned back to the center of the room and focused again. Who are you? I asked the entity, slow and firm. No answer. I opened myself wider. Mediumship is part talent, part discipline, and part surrender. You have to be willing to let something inside. Not possession, not exactly, but a closeness. Like letting someone whisper in your soul. I whispered again, "Do you know what happened that day?" The reply came with a sudden drop in temperature. The air turned dense. I could see my own breath. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way," the voice murmured. "She wasn't meant to die." A sob. One that sounded different this time. Raw. Regretful. "What about Mr. Dawson?" The tone shifted, like a knife catching sunlight. The man got what he deserved. The light bulb overhead buzzed violently, casting brief shadows that twitched like insects. Then silence. I exhaled slowly and turned to Lana. "This is not just a spirit. I think this is the person who killed them." Her eyes brimmed with tears. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but didn't know what. Her grief wasn't the loud kind. It was the quiet, smouldering kind that becomes a permanent weight. I continued the session. "Why did you do it?" "Nothing." I pressed harder. "What made you take their lives?" A long pause. Then, "Because I loved her. Because she was light, and I was drowning in dark." My skin prickled. Lana gasped. "I used to watch her every day," the voice continued. "In the driveway, with her dog picking up her mail. She had this laugh like sunlight on water." "You watched her?" "I adored her." "Then why murder?" "She chose him. She chose him when she should have chosen me." The emotion in the voice was twisted. Grief, obsession, betrayal. Not love. Love doesn't destroy. "She wouldn't come with me," the voice sobbed again. "I begged her. I waited. I watched. And that night I asked. She screamed. He came downstairs. It was all ruined." The light overhead exploded, raining sparks. Lana let out a scream. I stood up. "That's enough for today." But the voice wasn't done. "You don't get to leave," it howled. Almost non-human now. The front door slammed shut. The temperature plummeted. The corners of the room darkened. Lana huddled on the floor. I raised my hand, clutching the silver amulet I always wore. "You don't get to stay," I said, channeling everything I had. "This house is not yours. These lives were not yours. You will not speak unless I permit it." The shadows trembled. Then they faded. The room returned to stillness. The bulb was shattered. The light was gone. But we were okay. For now. Lana stood, shaken. "Who was that?" "I don't know," I said, "but he knew your mother. Maybe lived nearby." That's when the idea sparked. "Did anyone in the neighborhood disappear around the time of the murders?" Lana frowned, thinking. "No, not that I know of." "What about that old woman across the street?" I asked. She paused. "Mrs. Gerhardt, her husband left her, I think, never came back." My breath caught. I needed to speak to her. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the trees. Shadows grew long. The air had the coppery smell of coming dusk. I walked to Mrs. Gerhardt's home and knocked. She opened it with a sweet smile. "Oh, hello again, dear. Would you like some tea?" "I was hoping for a glass of water, if that's okay." Of course," she said, ushering me inside. Her home was the opposite of Lana's, warm, full, lived in. Photos covered every surface, doilies draped over old armchairs. There was something almost comforting about it. Until I saw the portrait, her and her husband, smiling, in the Dawsons' driveway. The background was unmistakable. I stared a moment too long. "You like that one?" she asked gently. "Yes. You look happy." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "He left," she said after a moment. "Some men just don't know what they have." I sipped the water slowly. "I met him," I said casually. She looked up. "In the house," I continued. "He spoke to me." Her knuckles went white on the edge of the counter. "He told me what he did." She didn't speak. He watched her every day, obsessively, and when she said no, he snapped. She still didn't speak, but tears slipped down her cheeks. Silent. Steady. "I knew it," she whispered. "I knew something was wrong that night." "What happened?" I asked softly. "He came home covered in blood," she said, voice cracking. "He said it was an accident. He said she made him do it. And then he laughed. He laughed." I waited. So I took the gun, she said, and I shot him. I buried him in the garden, and I never told a soul. Silence. Why are you telling me now? I asked, because maybe he'll finally leave if someone knows. I nodded. He's not at peace, but he's trapped now, and he'll stay that way. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I stood and left. Back at the house, Lana waited. Did you learn anything? She asked. I nodded. Yes, your parents were killed by someone nearby, someone obsessed, but they're gone now. She looked down. Thank you, she whispered. I didn't tell her the rest. She didn't need to carry that weight. Some truths are tombstones. I didn't sleep that night, not from fear, but from noise. The noise behind silence. Sometimes, when spirits know they've been heard, they don't stop whispering. It's as if breaking the wall between the living and the dead turns you into a conduit, forever tuned to their frequency. That night, even with the windows closed, the fan on, and earbuds in, I still heard it. Voices, sobbing, fragmented laughter, clicking sounds like nails on tile, names being whispered over and over. And somewhere, buried beneath all of it, breathing. Not mine, not human. By morning I was pale and jittery, so I drove to a diner on the edge of town. Black coffee. Greasy eggs. The kind of place where no one asked too many questions. I needed the noise of real life, the clink of plates, the hum of a jukebox, someone yelling about their lottery ticket, to drown out the dead for a while. But even then, I felt the pull, like something was still holding on to me. I called Lana, asked if I could return to the house alone that morning. She hesitated but agreed. I needed more than answers now. I needed resolution. Closure. Whatever lived in that house was still active, and I had the feeling it wasn't just the killer's spirit trapped there. There was something else. The house was colder than the outside air, despite the Florida heat. I entered slowly, listening, not with my ears, but with that part of me attuned to the in-between. I sat cross-legged in the center of the living room, on the same spot where the voice had first appeared. No chair, no props, no incantations, just stillness. I whispered, I'm listening. This time the reply didn't come as a voice. It came as a memory, a rush of sensation, not mine, but someone else's. I felt fingers scraping wood, eyes squinting through tears, a hallway smeared with blood, the metallic taste of panic, the desperate urge to scream. Then a sound, the doorbell, and everything froze. I was no longer in the room. I was in the memory. I stood in the Dawson home, but it wasn't abandoned. It was clean, warm. A family photo hung on the wall. The couch was soft, the carpet unstained. There was music playing faintly from a nearby radio. I looked down. My hands were smaller, younger, female. I was her, Miss Dawson, Lana's mother, trapped in her last memory. The doorbell rang again. I moved to answer it, confused, a bit annoyed. Probably a neighbor. It was late. I opened the door, and there he was. I didn't know his name, but his face was wrong, too eager. Eyes too wide, smiling too much. Hello, he said. Sorry to bother you so late. I needed to see you. I stepped back. Do I know you? He took a step forward. We've spoken from across the street. You waved at me yesterday. I wave at a lot of people. You waved like you meant it. Something in his voice cracked, like he couldn't decide if he was heartbroken or angry. He stepped inside, uninvited. I don't think, I started. Then his hand closed around my wrist. I just want you to hear me out, he said softly. Then I'll go. But he didn't go. Not in that memory. And what happened next I couldn't watch again. Not even in her shoes. The memory broke, shattering like glass, and I was back, on the floor, sweating, trembling. I ran outside for air, nearly threw up in the bushes. That's the problem with memory channeling. It isn't just watching, it's feeling. And this one had burned its way into me. That man, Lana's neighbor's husband, hadn't just killed, he had possessed, consumed. He'd anchored his obsession so deep in this house, in this family, that it had become part of the walls. And that meant Lana would never be free of it unless I did something drastic. I went to see the old woman again, Mrs. Gerhardt. She answered slowly this time, tired, diminished. Is he still there? She asked. Yes, I said. But it's not just him. There's more. He didn't just kill them. He infected the space with everything he was. She nodded slowly, and then for the first time, she invited me in with the door fully open. I told her everything. She cried silently. I buried him in the garden, she confessed again, and I thought that was the end, that if he rotted long enough, he'd disappear. It doesn't work that way, I said. You think I didn't know that? She snapped. He talked to me. Every night, in dreams, in cracks in the floor. He begged me to dig him up. He promised he'd be different. I stared. You kept him there because you were punishing him. Yes, even after death. Yes, I sighed. Then we need to finish what you started. She didn't ask what that meant, because she already knew. The sun had dipped behind the trees when I returned to the Dawson house that evening. It wasn't night yet, but the sky wore that purple-blue haze that always makes you question how much time you have left before the dark sets in. I didn't bring salt, incense, or anything else a TV psychic might haul around. Those were props, illusion for comfort. What I needed was silence, concentration, and will, and a shovel. Mrs. Gerhardt was waiting in her backyard, dressed in black like she was going to a funeral. Maybe she was. She'd already marked the spot where he was buried. A small rectangle of flower bed where nothing had grown in decades. The soil looked dry, but something about it felt soaked, saturated in more than water. Are you sure? She asked, her voice cracking with something that might have been grief or fear. No one should stay buried in rage, I told her. He's not at rest, not even close. She handed me the shovel and went inside. The first strike was hard, the dirt resistant. But with each scoop the earth softened, almost like it wanted to let him go. As I dug, the air changed. It got colder, denser. Then I hit something. Not a coffin, just a body bag. Old, rotting, torn in places, and yet the form inside was intact, too intact. His face stared back at me through the plastic, eyes wide open, skin grey, expression unchanged. But he wasn't dead, not in the way that matters. A wind burst from the hole upward as if the earth itself exhaled. The trees groaned, lights flickered in the house next door. I took a deep breath and said the words I'd been holding since the memory possession. Your secret's out. Lana knows. You don't have her anymore. She's free of you. The wind stopped. The air was still. Then I heard it. A low growl. Not from the earth, from the bag, and the corpse moved. I dropped the shovel. Instinct screamed for me to run, but I stood frozen as his hand twitched inside the plastic. His mouth opened and a sound like grinding bones spilled out. You lied. It wasn't vocal, it was in my mind. You told her I was a monster, I loved her. No, I whispered. You owned her. That's not love. She smiled at me. She waved. She chose me. She was being polite. You were the monster under her bed. His mouth twisted into a grin. Then why can't she stop dreaming of me? Something sharp pulled behind my eyes, a psychic backlash, and I staggered back. But I held on, held in. This is your end, I said. You stay here in this shell, or you leave. But you don't get to speak anymore. He laughed. And in that laugh, I heard every twisted obsession, every night he'd watched her, every excuse he made to justify what he'd done. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small scrap of paper Lana had unknowingly given me, a note her mother had written in a journal just days before her death. I think the neighbor watches me. I hope I'm wrong. I dropped the note into the hole. This is your judgment, I said. By her voice, by her truth. You're not a victim. You're a parasite. The wind screamed again, and this time it wasn't angry. It was afraid. Mrs. Gerhardt came outside, pale, trembling. She saw the body bag, saw me standing over it, sweating and wide-eyed. He's not going to haunt me anymore, she asked. I shook my head. Not after tonight. He's going where he belongs. She nodded slowly. Then she walked over, dropped a match into the grave. It lit instantly, far too fast. The flames shot up, hungry, blue. I always hated his perfume, she muttered, staring at the fire. By morning, all that was left was ash, nothing else, not a bone, not a tooth, not a scrap of plastic, just silence. And it was peaceful. The fire was gone by morning, but its scent lingered, a thick, bitter tang that clung to my coat and hair. Mrs. Gerhardt said nothing more. She stood with me until dawn, watching the earth cool down and harden. Her hands trembled. Her lips moved without sound. There were things she wanted to say, I knew that, but some things stayed trapped behind teeth forever. When I knocked on Lana's door later that day, she didn't answer right away. I could see her shadow moving behind the glass. Slowly, hesitant, she finally opened the door, not wide, just enough for her face to peek out. "I know you went back," she said. "I needed to," I replied, "for both of us." She stepped aside and let me in. The living room was still stripped bare, but she had lit a candle in the corner. Vanilla. It masked the staleness of the air. "You found something," she said, not a question. "Yes." She waited, folding her arms tightly around herself. Her eyes were red but dry. Was it him?" I nodded. "And he told you why?" "He said he loved your mother, that he wanted to get rid of your father and take her for himself." She didn't flinch, not visibly, but something in her eyes dimmed. "I thought it might be that," she whispered. "When I was little, he used to wave at me from the porch. Brought cookies sometimes. I thought he was just nice." "He was watching her," I said. "And you, for a long time." I remember feeling weird around him, but I told myself I was imagining things. She sat on the floor, cross-legged, facing the spot where I'd channeled the voice days ago. "Do you believe in inherited trauma?" she asked suddenly. "Yes." "I think I have it. I dream of things I never saw. Blood on the stairs, a scream in the hallway. I thought I was crazy." "You're not. Some echoes stay in the bloodline." We sat in silence. "Do you think she knows now?" she asked. "My mom? That I kept the house? That I stayed?" "I think she's been with you the whole time." Lana nodded slowly, then pulled something from her coat pocket, a photograph. Old, cracked, faded from years in a wallet. It showed her mother, young and smiling, holding baby Lana on her hip. Behind her was the Dawson house, still vibrant and alive. "I used to think this place was cursed," she said, "but maybe it was just wounded. Now it can heal." Over the next few days, Lana and I cleaned, swept, painted. She told me she wanted to reclaim it, not sell it. Turn it into something new. Maybe a place for women who'd survived abuse, or children without homes. "I want it to become the opposite of what it was," she said. The energy inside shifted. You could feel it, like a shadow pulling away from the walls, letting the light in. But peace never arrives all at once. On the fourth day, I found Lana staring into the empty master bedroom, the one her parents used to share. "He used to stand outside this window," she whispered. "I didn't tell you that before. My mom wrote it in her journal." "He's gone now," I reassured her. "I know," she said, "but part of me still feels him here, like he left something behind." Sometimes spirits leave echoes, traces. They're not conscious, not harmful, but they feel like the real thing. And for someone like Lana, who'd lived with fear buried in her bones, even an echo could feel like a scream. "Then let's speak to her," I said. "Who?" "Your mom." We set up in the room. I lit a single white candle. Lana held the photo of her mother. I placed both our hands on the floor, and I called out. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a whisper into the space between. "Mrs. Dawson, we're here. Your daughter's here. She's ready." The candle flickered. Lana squeezed my hand. A breeze passed through the room, though the windows were shut. And then warmth. A soft, golden feeling spread across the floor, like sunlight through skin. No words, no visions, just comfort. Lana started to cry, not loud sobs, but soft, quiet weeping. "She's here," she said. "I feel her. I know. I know." We stayed like that for what felt like hours. The room humming with presence, but not pressure. It was the kind of silence that speaks louder than any ghost. And then, as the candle flickered once more and faded, Lana whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Most people assume that once the haunting ends, the medium gets to leave. They never consider the toll. You see, it's not just the dead that linger. It's their emotions, their guilt, their rage. And if you open yourself to them, you invite more than just memories. You invite the rot that grows where wounds were never allowed to heal. I've carried that rot before. The Dawson case added to it. It started the next night. I'd checked into a small roadside motel a few towns over. Lana had insisted I stay with her, but I declined. She needed space, and I needed distance. Not just physical, psychic. Emotional, spiritual. My room smelled like bleach and damp carpet. I tried to sleep but woke up 3 times in cold sweats. The 4th time I stayed up. My head was pounding. There was a pressure in my ears like I was underwater. I tried meditating, tried grounding myself. Then I heard it. A voice. Soft. Inside my head, but not my own. You opened the door. I jolted upright. Looked around. Nothing. You opened the door, but never closed it. That's when I knew something followed me. Not a spirit, not exactly. Something older, deeper. An echo I hadn't noticed before. It had clung to me through the grave dust and fire smoke, through the guilt. It wasn't Dawson. It wasn't his victim. It was what fed on them. I left the motel that morning, pale and shaken. I needed answers. I needed a cleansing. There was only one person who could help, Jeremiah Greaves. He was a former medium who'd retired after his wife died. Some say he went crazy. Others said he'd gone too deep into the veil and saw something that broke his mind. Either way, he now lived in a cabin 2 hours north, in the woods near Lake Elnora. He didn't answer the door when I knocked. "I know you're in there," I called. "It's about something old, something that crossed over with me." That got his attention. He opened the door a crack. His face was a map of scars and fatigue, but his eyes were sharp. "You bring a hitchhiker?" he asked. "Maybe more than one." He let me in. Jeremiah's place was cluttered with charms, bones, and dried herbs. It smelled like smoke and rosemary. He motioned for me to sit and tossed a bundle of sage into a clay bowl. "Tell me what happened." I gave him the short version. The Dawson house, the ghost, the neighbor, the grave. When I got to the part about the fire and the voice afterward, his face changed. "You didn't burn him," he said. "You burned what was left of him. The man was already gone." I saw his body. You saw what the thing used as a shell. The rage stayed behind, and rage is contagious. That word hit me like a slap. "What do I do?" I asked. "You closed the door." "I thought I did." "You didn't seal it. You just walked away. That's not closure. It's escape." We performed the ritual that night. Jeremiah led me into a clearing behind his cabin, ringed by salt and animal bones. He gave me a candle blackened with soot and told me to speak the names of every soul I'd connected to in that house. I spoke Lana's, her mother's, her father's, even Dawson's. The candle flickered. Then the air rippled. Jeremiah started chanting something in a language I didn't recognize. And then I felt it. Something pulling out of me. Like static ripping off skin, like a scream with no mouth. I doubled over, and the forest around us howled. Something didn't want to leave. I don't remember falling. When I came to, it was daylight. I was in Jeremiah's cabin. He looked like he hadn't slept. "It's gone," he said simply. I nodded, grateful. "Exhausted. Not forever," he added. "These things, they find new cracks, but for now, you're clean." I left Lake Elnora with a new scar, spiritual, invisible, but deep. The next day, Lana called. "I wanted to tell you something," she said. "I found an old letter from my mom. In it, she wrote about having dreams. Dreams of someone watching her, but also of someone helping her. Someone unseen." She paused. "She described you." My breath caught. "I think she was waiting for you before she even died." We sat in silence. "I'll come visit," I said finally. "You better." I hadn't planned on returning to the Dawson house so soon. But some houses aren't just buildings. They breathe. They listen. They wait. 2 weeks after my ritual cleansing with Jeremiah, I felt the pull again. Not a haunting, not a cry for help, a hum. Low and steady, somewhere deep in my chest. I'd been sleeping better, finally. But then the dreams started. Always the same. The empty Dawson house, lit only by moonlight. A hallway that stretched too long. A door at the end that hadn't been there before. I'd walk toward it and wake up just before touching the handle. Every single night. The last time the door whispered, "Come home." So I did. Lana greeted me with a hug. She'd done wonders to the house. Fresh paint, new fixtures, furniture slowly filling in the once barren rooms. The kitchen gleamed. Light now pooled into the hallways that had once swallowed it. "I've been dreaming too," she said, before I could even sit. "Oh," she nodded. "Same dream. The hallway. The door." We stared at each other. Something had awakened inside the house, or had never truly left. "I think it's time," she said. "For what? To open it." We prepared that night. Cleansing herbs, salt, protective symbols. But none of it felt right. This wasn't a confrontation. This was a remembering. We followed our dreams down the corridor to the final bedroom, the one that had once belonged to Lana's childhood. There was no new door, at least not in the wall. But on the floor, near the old heating vent, there was a seam neither of us had noticed before. I knelt. The floorboard was loose. With a gentle pry, it came free. Inside was a hidden compartment, a rusted tin box. Inside that, a bundle of papers, brittle and yellowed. Lana sat beside me as I unfolded the first page. A letter from her mother. "Dearest Lana, if you are reading this, then you are stronger than I ever was. I've always felt something in this house. Not evil, not dark, just watching, waiting, and not for me, for you. I've had dreams since before you were born. Dreams of you walking these halls alone, of whispers in your sleep, of a door only you could open. If you find this, then maybe you've opened it, and maybe that means you're ready to see the truth. I was not murdered by a stranger. Lana's breath caught. Your father knew about the man, about the looks, the notes left in the mailbox. He confronted him, and in that moment he made a choice. He let him in. We both went still. He thought by confronting him he could scare him off, but he underestimated obsession and guilt. He died trying to protect me. I died knowing you were not home, and that was enough. You survived, Lana, and this house has waited for you to return. Because some truths do not rest. They wait. They wait to be acknowledged. They wait to be healed. Please forgive him. Forgive me. And when you are ready, forgive yourself. Mom. We sat in silence for a long time. The weight of it was crushing, and yet something in the air changed. A warmth, a presence. And then the creak of floorboards upstairs. Not menacing, just a step. Lana looked at me. "She's here." I nodded. And so is he. We lit a single candle in the center of the living room. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like it was breathing in time with us. No voices came, no spectral images, just a feeling, a home remembering what it once was. "I think this house wasn't haunted by what happened," I said. Lana looked at me, eyes glassy. "What then? It was haunted by what was never said. And now, the house had spoken. It started with a sound no louder than a breath. A hush that came from the baseboards as I walked the hallway alone. Lana had gone to visit her grandmother. After the discovery of the letter, she needed time with someone who remembered her parents in a gentler light. I offered to stay behind and watch the house. She accepted without hesitation. The nights since had been still, not peaceful, just still, like the eye of a storm waiting to blink. But that night, something shifted. I was halfway to the kitchen when the whisper first came. "You forgot something." I froze. The voice wasn't Lana's. And it wasn't the house's usual breath of memory and pain. It was deeper, older. And it came from beneath the floor. I got down on my knees. The floorboard near the heating vent, the same one we'd pried open to find the letter, was now slightly raised. Not loose, lifted. I reached toward it. The whisper again, "Not yet." My hand paused mid-air. There was no breeze, no open window, no EMF spike on the meter clipped to my belt. And yet the temperature dropped. I backed away. I needed to prepare. I called Jeremiah, told him what I'd heard, what I'd felt. He was quiet on the other end, then said simply, "If it's still whispering, it's not done with you. What does it want?" Whatever was buried beneath that house wasn't just bones. It was truth, and the truth has roots. Roots, emotional, psychic, generational. Dig carefully. The next day I returned to the floorboard. This time I brought tools, gloves, salt, a single black candle. I pried the board again, slower this time. Beneath the tin box was a second compartment, one that hadn't been visible before, a velvet pouch, tied shut. I opened it. Inside, a child's bracelet, silver, bent, engraved with the letter L, and next to it, a dried-out bouquet of violets. I felt dizzy. Something was wrong. I took the items outside, placed them on the porch. Then I sat in the middle of the living room floor, closed my eyes and whispered, "I'm listening." The house answered with a memory. A vision unfolded in my mind. Lana, Age 5, playing in the front yard, a neighbour watches, smiles. He gives her a flower. Violet, she accepts it, smiling, unaware. She runs to show her mother. Her mother's face tightens. She says nothing. The man watches from across the street. Every day. The violets pile up. Another memory, the bracelet. A gift. Lana wears it once, then hides it. Her mother finds it and buries it beneath the floor. A spell of protection, perhaps, a gesture of fear. The whispers return. She saw, she knew, but didn't speak. I opened my eyes. The air was thick, the candle had burned halfway down, and a shadow passed across the window. It wasn't over. There was one more truth waiting. I dug deeper beneath the floor, found a small leather-bound journal. Inside, the writings of Lana's mother. She described the neighbour in detail, his obsession, his stalking, the way he stared at Lana, and the decision she made to never go to the police, because he was a friend, because he was sick, because she believed she could protect her daughter, until she couldn't. The final entry was short. He came to the door tonight. Phil is asleep. Lana is with my mother. I don't know what to do. I feel the house watching me, waiting. I hope it remembers what I've tried to do. If I don't make it, please let her forgive me. I closed the journal. Tears welled in my eyes. The candle flickered and extinguished. The house exhaled. I buried the violets and the bracelet in the backyard under moonlight. I whispered a prayer for every silence that had turned into pain, for every protection that came too late, and for the woman who tried against all odds to keep her daughter safe. Lana returned the next day. I told her everything. We cried together. Some hauntings are not about ghosts. They're about the words left unsaid, and the people brave enough to listen. The morning air was heavy with the scent of turned soil and violet petals. Lana and I stood at the edge of the yard, facing the small mound where we had buried the bracelet and dried bouquet. Her hand clutched the journal her mother had left behind, its leather binding now soft from wear. Neither of us spoke. Because what could you say? Her childhood had been rewritten overnight. Memories she once held dear were now blurred with shadows. She hadn't just lost her parents, she had lost the illusion that they had ever truly been safe. I think the house is quieter, she whispered. I nodded, but the silence wasn't empty. It was reflective, like the calm left behind after a storm. Over the next few days, we cleaned the house together, not just dusting shelves or vacuuming carpets. We purged it. We went room by room, sorting through drawers, closets, photo albums. The house gave up its ghosts in pieces. A receipt tucked into a Bible, a birthday card never mailed, a cassette tape labelled Elle's song. We played it one night. Her father's voice singing softly, off-key, accompanied by a cheap keyboard. Lana wept through the entire recording. He loved her, I said. He really did. I know, she replied. I just wish love had been enough. I stayed another week. Each night, the house seemed to breathe a little easier. The lights flickered less, the temperature stabilized, no more whispers beneath the floor, but something lingered. Not danger, not fear, just echoes. Jeremiah called again. How's the house? Settling, like bones after a funeral. And you? I hesitated. I don't know. I keep thinking about what her mother wrote, about protection, about silence, about guilt. Guilt is a ghost too, he said. It haunts those who survive. Do you think she was wrong? He exhaled on the other end. I think she was human, and humans try to protect the people they love, even when it breaks them. Lana and I spent the last day in the attic. We found old boxes labelled in shaky cursive, Christmas, summer 1997, Phil's work stuff. But one box had no label, only dust. Inside was a typewriter, and beneath it a stack of pages. A manuscript, half finished. It was a story her mother had started. Fiction, maybe, or maybe not. It was about a woman trapped in a town where no one believed her. A man watched her, the town watched him, but no one acted. It ended mid-sentence. She stood on the edge of the lawn, knowing the house would remember her even if no one else would. Lana read it aloud, then folded the page carefully and placed it beside her journal. She left everything behind, even her voice. Maybe she was waiting for someone to finish the sentence, I said. I packed my things the next day. Lana hugged me tighter than she had the first time we met. There were no tears, only understanding. "I'll be okay now," she said. "I think the house will be too. Promise me one thing." "Anything. Keep writing." She smiled. I already started. The flight back was uneventful. No spirits, no voices, just clouds and sky. I looked out the window and thought about all the homes I'd been in, all the pain I'd felt echoing through floorboards and photographs. But this one was different. This one healed. Back in my apartment, I unpacked slowly. When I reached into my bag to remove my notebook, something fell out. A single violet, fresh. I picked it up, pressed it between the pages, and whispered, "For those who stayed, for those who tried, for those who still whisper when no one listens." It had been 6 weeks since I left Lana's house, but in many ways I was still there. Even in my own apartment, even in the familiar hum of the city, I heard the faint creak of wooden floorboards, the whisper of lavender on the breeze, the sound of old grief rustling beneath wallpaper. The case was technically closed. Lana had answers. Her mother's truth, the killer's name, and the echoes of what had been hidden for decades. But closure isn't the same as peace, and some doors, once opened, remain open. One Thursday night, I dreamt of her house. It was standing in a field of wildflowers, surrounded by fog. The front door stood open, swinging slowly on invisible wind. Inside, the rooms were lit dimly, but something shimmered beneath the foundation. A soft hum vibrated through the floorboards, like voices murmuring in sleep. In the dream, I walked toward the cellar door, only this time it wasn't beneath the stairs. It was in the living room, just behind the fireplace, a door where there shouldn't have been one. It opened backwards. When I stepped through, I wasn't in the house anymore. I was inside someone's memory. I woke up gasping. My phone buzzed. A text from Lana. "Are you awake?" I called her immediately. "I saw something," she whispered. "In the garden. I think it was my mother." She didn't speak. She just stood there, pointing to the back door. I didn't hesitate. The next flight out, I was on it. The house hadn't changed, but the air around it had. There was a stillness, not the absence of life, but the kind that comes before something breaks. Like the breath before a scream. Lana met me outside. She looked tired, but not afraid. "She hasn't come back, but the flowers you planted, they've grown. Overnight." The small garden I had helped her tend, just a patch of memory in the corner of the yard, was now vibrant. Violet, rosemary, foxglove, and something else I didn't recognize. "It's like something's waking up," she said. That night I wandered the house alone, room by room, listening, feeling. The cellar was silent. The bedroom was cold, the attic was watching. But it wasn't until I stood in the kitchen that I felt it, a faint pull behind the wall. The same wall that once held family photos, the same wall her mother had leaned against that final day. I pressed my hand to the paint, and then it gave. The wall dissolved, not physically, but energetically. And there, behind the shimmer, was a door. It didn't belong. It was old, wooden, carved with a strange looping pattern. No knob, no hinges. It just opened, backwards. The room beyond was unlike anything I'd seen before. It was a void, but not dark. It shimmered like memory and pulse. Floating images hung in the air. Lana as a child, her mother baking bread, her father dancing alone in the hallway. But there were cracks, and through those cracks something watched. Not malevolent, not kind, just waiting. I stepped forward, and the door behind me vanished. This place was hers, her mother's, the echo of what she left behind when she died, what she couldn't say in life. I saw it all now. The night she hid bruises, the letters she burned, the small voice she buried to protect Lana. This was her story, unwritten, unfinished, a journal with no last page. I sat down, cross-legged on the floor of memory, and whispered, "I'm listening." And she came, her mother's spirit, gentle, weathered, holding a photo in one hand and a rose in the other. "I'm sorry," she said. "I left too much unsaid. You protected her," I said, "but I hurt her by vanishing without a map. She deserved to know the whole truth. She does now." And in that moment the room began to collapse gently, not in fear, in release. Memory returned to soil, regret turned to wind, and when I opened my eyes again, I was on the kitchen floor. Lana stood over me. "You were gone," she whispered. "Just for a second, but it felt like a year." I saw her. I know. The door never appeared again. But the house, it felt free. And so did Lana. I left the next morning, not forever, but for now, because some places need to be left alone once they've said their piece. As I drove away, I looked once more in the rearview mirror, and in the top attic window just for a second I saw her mother, smiling, then turning away, walking through a door I could no longer see. The end. Echoes don't always haunt. Sometimes they teach us how to listen.